Hello, my friend, and welcome to our tea time. Today's tea time topic is Black Lilith Returns. I'm recording this because I just kind of want to document for history's sake. I am currently going through what we call a Black Lilith Return. And if you don't know what Black Lilith is kind of an imaginary spot known as the dark moon. It's calculated in a proximity with the earth and the moon and the sun when you're born, much like a vertex or a part of fortune. But what it represents in your chart is a past life situation that is still reverberating in your soul. And that past life situation involves fear, terror, and pain. And it comes from this fable of Lilith being a scorned woman out of the Garden of Eden. She allegedly was Adam's first wife, and she was thrown out of the garden. There's a whole mythology around that. It also sort of represents how the earth went from being a matriarchy where women were in charge, and somewhere along our history we became a patriarchy where the men took charge, and female power fell from grace. So your Black Lilith spot in your natal chart really represents where you have fallen from grace in a past life, where you have been thrown out of the garden, where you have had terror, and where you might have had even issues with your children, because there's also sort of ties that Lilith is tied to the death of children. In fact, in the old days, it was thought that if your child died of SIDS, it might have been old Black Lilith that attributed to that. Now, I noticed that my Black Lilith return was happening the same time I was taking my trip to see my son not too long ago. And I thought that as really good fortune because if I'm going to go through a dark night of the soul, I want someone I love purely and authentically to be by my side. So I was very grateful that I got to be with my son. But I have to say that as Black Lilith was approaching, in other words, approaching the return, which, by the way, happens every 8 years and 10 months. So every 8 years and 10 months, you go through a Black Lilith return where your deepest fears and woes and past life things will bubble up. Well, I would say as of January of this year, I noticed as Black Lilith was on approach that nearly every fear I have ever been paralyzed by came back. Fear of the dentist, fear of poverty, fear of being without, fear of never being loved, like all these fears. And I worked through all these fears, and each time they came, I just had to remind myself and love myself like it's going to be okay. This is just a fear. I was surprised, though, because my mind was like, I thought we worked through this. I thought I already got through these fears. But my logical mind and the astrologer Sensei me was like, well, Black Lilith's coming up. This still must reverberate inside of you, must still have a lot of depth to it. Well, as we moved up to the actual Black Lilith return, I have to say that my fears became just bizarre. Like when I was with my son, I had a lot of fear of losing him, fear of something happening to him, fears I never really had before. I would say even absurd fears, fears that had absolutely no evidence whatsoever, but I couldn't help but feel these fears overcome me. I was having fear of traveling on the airplane, fear of like getting in a car accident. It was kind of obnoxious, really, and I bring it up because, I want you to know that it was irrational. It did come out of nowhere, and it did kind of strike without warning. And I feel that this happens to other people, particularly in your Black Lilith return, or when you're squaring your Black Lilith, or opposing your Black Lilith. But then as the epicenter of the eye of Black Lilith started to kind of cross over me, I really started to feel some deep sorrow. And I actually started to feel the pain of the loss that my heart had felt. For me, Black Lilith is in the 5th house, which is the house of inner child. And unfortunately, it's also conjuncting my Juno, which is supposed to be what your greatest love is. So very clearly early on, I knew my greatest sorrow was attached to my greatest love. And for many years, in fact, I think I had a lot of issues with being afraid of falling in love because I was afraid I would lose that person if I did fall in love. So I almost had like a joyful glass ceiling where I did not let myself get past too much joy in a relationship because I deeply felt if I fell in love, if I surrendered, I would lose that love. So when I kind of went through the eye of the return, I did feel this incredible loss in my heart, like wanted to cry, and I had really incredible sad dreams. In fact, one of the dreams I had was that my iPhone was stolen at Disneyland. Like, you can't get more literal of Black Lilith conjunct Juno than that. That here I am at Disneyland, the happiest place on earth, and I lose my iPhone, which to me represents my power, my ability to connect and whatnot. But I also felt on a very deep level for many days of the Black Lilith Return, just this deep sorrow and hurt and loss in my heart. So what I had to do, and I'm still doing actually, I'm still feeling the effects of this, is just giving myself a lot of love, reminding myself that whatever that was, it's not going to happen again. And I think that's how we heal these dark wounds inside our soul. We have to live a life now. We have to live some time in the present where we're not going to let it affect us, or we're not going to just sit by the wayside and be distraught by it. We're going to do something for ourselves, something loving, some sort of loving action for ourselves that will correct it. But boy, is that hard when you're in it. Let me just tell you. The last thing I'll point out is that my Black Lilith is at step 19 Sagittarius. And when you see your Black Lilith in your natal chart, you'll notice that whatever step number she's at has some sort of resonance to your whole chart. In fact, for me, my Chiron's at step 19, my Saturn's at step 19, my Uranus is at step 19, my Juno's at step 19, and my Black Lilith, all in different signs. But clearly, this is a step number that I have tripped over. I'm both good at, and it also makes me trip up. Now, step 19 is actually I manifest. The 1 plus 9 nets to a 10. And 19 is kind of when you move from, let's say, 4th gear into 5th gear. You go from, being good at something to mastery. And I've found, as I was reflecting over this Black Lilith period, that many times in my life, I would get a project up to step 19, and then I would sabotage it. Like something would happen to it. I know I was sabotaging it, and I couldn't get past this step 19. Now, my heart is hoping I'm getting past it now, and I think that's part of the fear is like, according to past lives and according to Black Lilith, this is the degree or the point where I usually dropped all the dishes and everything fell down. So I think part of the healing is getting to step 20. You know what I mean? Like living to step 20, making it to step 20, making it past that degreed step. So you'll probably find in your chart that whatever step number your Black Lilith is at is one where you have a lot of fear, darkness, and fright around. One thing is true, and I'll leave you with this, is, when a transit like this hits, this is one of the reasons why I love astrology, because I have seen with my own eyes that transits come and transits go. And in other words, just keep moving, just keep swimming, because you will come out of the given transit. And the astrology always gives me hope, because all I have to do is track when that will happen, and I know I will feel better. So if you are going through some of this, and I think because we're in this powerful solar eclipse Leo kind of moment where we're all coming out of some of the pain and the stories we were born with, you may not be going literally through your Black Lilith return, but you likely in this particular moment will be looking straight into the eye of some of your heart's deepest sorrows. And your job, in my opinion, is to tell those sorrows, hey, we've lived past it, we reincarnated, it's not going to happen, and just sit by your side as you move through the transit. I hope that helps for you. I know I'm still rubbing my chest. He is sore right now, but we're going to win this bicycle race. Well, friends, that wraps it up for today's Black Lilith Tea Time. We had some black tea today. Remember, I will be live on the air on Facebook Live tomorrow, so be sure to tune in. That's 4 p.m. Eastern, 1 p.m. Pacific, and you can view and watch live at namastetoday.club. Otherwise, I'll be posting it on our YouTube channel over the weekend. I hope you have a great 24 hours. Remember, I love you, and to live, love, be.
Live, love, be.